Hello students. In today's lecture we'll see Lacan and why did he choose seminar on the Purloined letter to introduce a collection of his écrits, which was published in 1966. Obviously we must have read by now, or you must have seen it by now, that Lacan basically used to choose to write essays otherwise in a chronological order. Like whatever he used to write used to appear in a chronological order, but here to explain or this concept of repetition, he had chosen the Purloined letter for his seminar. So basically when we talk about a Purloined letter, we see that for this part, Lacan maintains in the introduction to his seminar on Purloined letter the examination of problems of repetition. In 1920 was actually the renewal of an old question, one about the nature of memory as it emerged in the project of scientific psychology, which was obviously done in 1954. So there Lacan insists that Freud conceives of his system, that is precursor of what would later be called the regulate the unconscious activities of the mind. So how laws such as these permeate the sedimentation of language that surrounds an infant when it comes into the world, and thereby constitute what Levi-Strauss and later obviously Lacan himself calls the symbolic order, and how this order constitute an eccentric center, and that is a center eccentric to the conscious center of the subject that would therefore be a unconscious subject. Fine. So how the infant is introduced into this eccentric place, and how the symbolic order thus conceived is even constitutive of all the subjects. All this Lacan presupposes in his essay as a familiar to his readers. That means he has assumed that these terms are known to his readers, and from here on he takes up this discussion of this Purloined letter in his seminar, keeping in view that people or his readers are well aware about these terms like eccentric, centric, constitutive. These terms are clear in their mind. Fine. So what he proposes here is to illustrate the whole business by means of literary example, in which we may see in a story the decisive orientation which the subject received from the itinerary of signifier. So that's why I have taken, before going into the seminar of Lacan, I have here done a deconstructive study of this letter, because it was important to go through this deconstructive study. Otherwise you would have found it a bit difficult to understand it. And moreover, as I told you, that there are certain terms which you should be clear about, and I had been giving you some examples about those words also, you should be aware about repetition, automatism, and these terms obviously. So I had been discussing all this thing with you, and obviously I had told you to go through all these terms in the previous classes also. So now moving on to today's lecture and coming to deconstructive reading of the Purloined letter. So here a Purloined letter is a story whose plot revolves around the act of seeing and not seeing. That means something is seen, but it is not seen. Yes, as we have read the story till now, that Minister G takes a letter from there. The lady, obviously from aristocratic class, or supposedly to be the queen, has seen the men taking the letter, but she assumed that she has not seen the act being taking place. Why she pretends? Because she doesn't want to alert the king, because her alarm can alert or may give concern to the king that what exactly was in the letter. So that is what she doesn't want to do. So hence psychoanalytical analysis of the story reveals not only the blindness of the character, but also the blindness of the reader. So in his seminar on the Praline letter, Lacan states, as we have seen, neither the king nor the police who replaced him in that position were able to read the letter, because that place entailed blindness. Although the constructionist philosopher Jacques Derrida accuses Lacan for seeing the story as an illustration, right, of psychoanalytical truth, and for not paying attention to the literary dimension while applying psychoanalytical theory to the text. So we'll be mentioning of Lacanian interpretation of the text in relation to the notion of literary blindness. So here he is saying that it is literary blindness. Now, first of all, we see that in the Purloined letter, as a reader, we don't know the content of the letter. Thus, we are blind to it, because till the end, we have seen that we are not made aware about the content of the letter. But yes, it is discussed that it has got some serious concern, which is in relation to the queen, and she is highly possessive, or we can say she is highly insecure about the loss of the letter. Now here Poe's characters are blind to the letter too. That means here we see that the character which Poe has mentioned or discussed in the story are all blind. According to Lacan, the letter independent from its content. That means the content of the letter has not at all affected anyone, or no one has read what exactly is there in the letter, or what exactly is written in the letter. Fine. So it returns where it was before, and finally we see that the letter comes back to its destination from where it had started, or from where it was moved. Fine. So hence it always reaches at its destination. So destination, if you talk about it, then it plays a very crucial role in the discussion or in the seminar of Lacan. So in the story, this movement of the letter has the phallus for Lacan, indicates that nobody can actually possess the phallus. So nonetheless, according to Lacan, the letter is doing something. It is functioning in the way that that enables the narrative without even suggesting any relevance of its signified. This function of the letter provides the one who seeks the letter, which can obviously metaphorically represent the reader, with the opportunity of actual touch, since the letter's function is not to stand or make some definite meaning. So here the letter is not making any meaning, because it doesn't has any existence, because the actual touch, that existence of the letter doesn't mean anything, but yes, it is symbolically there, which has affected everything. Fine. So eventually the reader who discovers the text step by step becomes a detective, like Dupin becomes blind by the act of actual touching, because we don't know what actually is the content of the letter, and what actually is the touch of the letter. Fine. So how it is touching anyone, basically we mean to say that how actually it is touching someone's life, right? So in the second half, of all, since the letter as a signifier doesn't correspond to the definite signified, that means it is not corresponding, it is not communicating to the signified. So one can conclude that there is no system for one to fully possess the letter. In other words, we can say that the lack of the signified metaphorically points at the impossibility of knowing how to read. Fine. So we don't know how to read it, because there is impossibility. We don't know about the content of the letter. So therefore Dupin is able to find the letter while the police can't. Why he is able to find it? Because instead of looking for that object or the signifier letter, he is getting into the mind of the character who has stolen it, who has purloined it, right? So therefore Dupin is able to find the letter while the police can't, despite their elaborate search or research that we had seen in the story, that they keep searching for the letter. Almost every square of his quarter or his house, Minister G's house, is looked for, searched, but they are not able to find the letter. So in this regard, Dupin represents the reader who doesn't know how to read. That means the readers are not able to read, while the police stands for the one who knows how to read but fails though. That means they don't know how to find the letter. The readers don't know how to find the letter. The police knows, or they know about the fact, and they know how can they find the letter, but in spite of their knowledge of reading or being able to find the letter, they fail to find it. Now the police conclude. Now here, so the police conclude with ultimate rationality that the letter must be in the apartment, which is correct. It was obviously assumed by the police, though at one point of time they had given up. They had come to the conclusion that they are not able to find the letter inside the apartment. That means it is not there. But finally, they feel that that Minister G must have not moved the letter out of the apartment, and it must be there within the apartment, and which is obviously correct. The police divide all squares of the apartment in pieces in order to investigate, and still can't find the letter. Though they are going into the details of the house, every nook and corner of the house, but still they are not able to find the letter. And for this, Dupin later explains that they are searching it from their point of view, or from their perspective. That means they are searching it the way they would have hidden it. That's why they are not able to find it. For this means that they'll have to understand the psyche or the trick of Minister G to understand that how he would hide the letter. Once they understand his policy or his system of hiding the letter, right, strategy of hiding the letter, then only they will be able to find the letter, which obviously we see that police till the end of the story is not able to find the letter in the second part, right? So at this point, Lacan states that it is the language itself when we talk about the letter. Fine. Also meaning the letters of the alphabet. Here he says that he implies that the story constructs the letter as language. So this kind of letter cannot be divided, right? So there is no division of the letter. Even if one divides the letter, it would still be a letter, right? So we cannot deconstruct the word letter because it is going to be sing. Fine. So that is why he is saying that further we cannot divide the word letter, because even if we deconstruct the letter, the word is going to remain as letter. Therefore, it doesn't fit in the logic of the police. The letter in the Purloined letter is an empty signifier. It doesn't signify anything, right? It is equal to zero. It is equal to nothing according to Lacan in this seminar, right? So like in other romantic era or the romantic works, the Praline letter contains some symbolism. Although symbolism is open to interpretation, the main symbol would be the letter. In the story, the letter can stand for proverbial skeleton because it has got a structure, but it doesn't have a meaning, a signified meaning here. The ones that can destroy a person's life if they go out of the metaphorical closet. So this is because the letter contains comprising information, and as stated above, can utterly ruin the woman's reputation or the lady's reputation. Another symbol for the letter could be sin. Yes, because it contains or it has got some secret of the lady. Maybe the queen, because we have not been given the definite identity of the lady here, right? So we are just assuming that maybe she was queen belonging to aristocratic family, maybe princess or whoever she was. But yes, another symbol for the letter could be sin. So letters are generally sealed in an envelope, as humans like to seal or hide their sins. So is the human sin, because it is inside ourselves, right? So we are not, or we don't want to open it. In the same way, the content of the letter is not disclosed to anyone. That's why the content is in a way non-existent for us, or it doesn't signify anything to us, because it is not the content of the letter is not being mentioned by Poe. Now we can say that it was dark romanticism, because Poe is considered to be dark romantic, The Romantic era was a movement of the 18th and 19th century that marked the reaction in literature. So, from a neoclassicism and formal orthodoxy of the preceding period, while most romantic writers wrote about nature, heaven, dark romantics rather focused on other side of humanity, like the darker side, yes, which people avoid to talk about, which people avoid to see. So in Purloined letter, Poe's characters have a few dark sides and secrets, especially the woman here whose letter was stolen had a secret to keep from her husband. She did not want to disclose the content. If only she had been honest with her husband, then obviously she would have immediately acted when the letter was being stolen by the minister. But she had something to hide from her husband. That's why she kept quiet in spite of witnessing the act of theft. She saw that the man or the minister was taking away the letter, but she had to keep quiet because of her sin, because she had to hide her sin. So this was presumably an affair which she was hiding from her husband. So Minister D was using the letter to blackmail the woman later, and obviously we see that which is another sin, because blackmailing a woman for like his own like benefit is again a sin. So it is again a sin that he was committing, right? So it is repetition. So that's like that's what we were discussing in repetition automatism, or like repetition. So this act of being repeated, repetition here doesn't mean that if I say something then I'm going to repeat the word again and again, right? So it doesn't mean that here. It means the incident, how they occur in like sequence, and how they affect the story, because it is considered to be a part of the destination. As it is like said that unless we learn one lesson we can't move on to others. That means we'll have to repeat the previous lesson to understand, like till we have understood it we won't be able to move to the next lesson. That is what he's trying to explain here, fine, in a way we can say. So all in order in order to find the letter, one has to be engaged to the act of voluntary blindness. So the emptiness of the signifier, as Lacan suggests, leads one to not to know how to read in order to find the letter. This may be interpreted as follows: for the literary text to fulfill itself, as Blanchot would suggest, one shouldn't know how to read. That means it is an assumption that one shouldn't presume on a priori social subject or terms. That means we have learned to read, or we know how to read, and we base our investigation or base our study on the basis of what we have already learned. We never try to apply something new to it, and that is what Blanchot here says, that one shouldn't know how to read. That means we have to unlearn certain things to learn new things, right? So here in Purloined letter, Dupin realizes this act. That means he will have to unlearn. What he'll have to unlearn here? The process which was used by the police to learn how exactly Minister G must have hidden the letter. And that's why he uses the trick which was used by the kids in their game of odd and even, right? He tries to unlearn the entire process to learn how exactly must have Minister G worked to steal the letter. What must have been his strategy to steal the letter, and where must he have hidden the letter? So that is all for today's discussion. Thank you all.